Don't stay in front of the camera.
John.
We're okay. We're okay. Thank you. Thank you.
No, not that. Someone find a seat, there's a seat up here in front if you want it. Okay, thank you, John. Okay, I'm just gonna say a little, something. Town and myself had never intended to have to build a pool. Last year, I was contacted by, the Parks, Joey, Gianzaro, Buildings and Grounds, Billy, Bobby Blair. And at the end of the season, we went through the pool, we did an examination, and I asked him if he can get one more year out of the pool. And he said he would do the best, and I said, because that would give us time to properly, move on to a new pool. That is what we did. He was able to fix it, they were able to seal it. They got the paint, we did our last supply of paint, we won't begin paint anymore. The pool cannot be used anymore as is, and it gave us a year to start to do the research, which we did. We, three of us, the three people, Brad, who's sitting next to me, and Joey on the left of me, went out and started researching how to do this pool. And I contacted contractors. Brad was contacting people for like equipment, and Joey was out working also. And we went and looked at a few pools, and in the end, I got a contractor that works out in Long Island who builds very large commercial pools. And he introduced me to Mr. John Petrosini on the end. He recommended him. He's a pool engineer. I contacted him. We met, sometime in March or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah. We met back in March. He took a look at our pool, laughed at us, told us, what the hell you doing building a pool out of asphalt? And then we moved on. He examined our pump stations, told us that they were in great shape. We should be able to use it, and it will help a lot. We asked him to draw us some sketches, see what the pool might look like. And the town board chose the one that is currently being designed. And from there, we've started the process. Now, tonight's meeting is strictly about the pool. If you want to talk about the property, or we're going to use bathrooms, or we're going to use a gatehouse, or we're going to do this, that has nothing to do with tonight's presentation. Tonight is strictly informational to talk about the pool. You have questions, you'll address them to the board, and we have a panel here of Bobby Blair, Brad Cassidy, Joey Gianzaro, and John. They will be doing most of the answering of the questions. If your question has been asked, please, when you get up, you don't have to repeat it. We've already gotten the answer. If you have questions about other parts of the pool, meaning the grounds and other such things that don't deal with the pool, we ask that you write your questions down, and we'll gladly hold a work session to discuss it with you. But tonight's meeting is strictly about the pool. So with that, how do we want to Okay. What we'll do is go row by row. And John, do you want to give a little talk beforehand or no?
Again,
Okay, thank you. Mr. John Petrosini.
Basically, we were contacted by the town. You have an existing pool, which previously was a natural pond. There was water clarity issues, there were accidents, and based upon mainly safety concerns and at the direction of the Orange County Health Department, the town was required to provide improvements that could filter the water and improve visibility. To do that, the entire pond was paved and a filtration system was up. Paving is an unusual choice for a pool lining. It's not by its nature waterproof. It's been sealed with a waterproof. Since that time, you're having a lot of leakage in the pool. The town during the summer is running a well of 90 gallons a minute in an attempt to keep the pool full.
Are you filming? Yeah. Okay, here.
There's already been concerns expressed by the village that they
Thank you.
continue to provide this amount of water. The health department has concerns regarding the current operations. Based on where the pool is right now, next season, the pool will not be able to operate in conformance with stable standards. Based on that, we started looking into the new pool. We were given many of the vital elements for inclusion in that. We were informed that the main priorities were to provide a large recreational area for families and kids, to provide places to swim laps, and that the diving pools were very important to the town. So what we've come up with is a marine pool that will allow for lap swimming, that provides a large area of water between 4 and 7 feet for people to just generally swim. There is a diving well attached to that off of one side. It'll have the 2 1-meter boards. And then off the other side of the lap pool, the entire long wall of the pool will open up into a long beach entrance. The pool as proposed is 11,430 square feet. In Orange County is an enormous pool. So people that have been going to the pool that you have now, it seems tiny. Your existing pool is about 44,000 square feet. It's over an acre. By comparison, the state park in Bear Mountain, their pool is about 20,000 square feet, accommodating everyone that wants to go there. The wave pool at Action Park, or in the amusement park, there are thousands of people in that. It's much bigger, it's about 24,000 square feet. So, although it's substantially smaller than what you have, it's a very large pool. It's been designed to accommodate roughly 700 people in the water at any given time. That does not limit the surrounding areas, the park. So you can literally have thousands of people at this facility at any given time. Based on the current usage that you have of your pool, we believe that will be adequate to serve the needs of your families. I don't know if you've had the chance to take a look at the information that was presented online, but at this point, whatever questions you have, we'd be happy to try and answer.
At first, I'm going to call our block commissioners up, one by one, to answer their questions first. So, where are you? Block commissioner, John. Go ahead.
Say something, or you want to answer a question?
You can ask a question, and you can say something. You could go up to the microphone's on. Yeah, you got it all the way back there.
Before John starts.
John, one moment, I think Tom is.
Before we start, the Parks Commissioners we met, we have a statement that was prepared that Fred, who's the chairman of the commissioners, he would like to read first, if it's okay with John. Okay, just go with Fred.
And you can have
Is your statement strictly about the pool?
Yes, I was gonna say that, Mr. Ungar does have a statement, I don't think this is on. He'll make a statement on behalf of the park commissioners. Some of us may have our own ideas or whatever. I've been involved with the planning almost from the beginning, when we met up with the res to see, some of the plans and so forth like that. And I spoke to Mr. Gianzaro about one way of demonstrating what it would look like if there was a possibility to stretch a line across where they expect to cut off the, I guess, the left side of the pool or whatever like that. But Mr. Ungar will give you probably more details from what the park commissioners discussed last week. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Fred Ungar, Parks Commission Chairman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the commissioners. At a town board meeting on September 19th, the Woodbury Parks and Recreation Commissioners, along with the public, were allowed to view the plans for the proposed pool. This was the first opportunity to see what was considered. On September 23rd, the commissioners received a copy of the proposed pool plans from Councilman Hernandez. We immediately scheduled a meeting for September 26th to examine and discuss these plans. Our current concerns include the following and are detailed in a handout that I will give to the board after I finish. The name of the pool is the John P. Burke Memorial Pool. We believe the size of the pool should be increased by approximately 3,500 square feet. We would like you to check the locations of the mushrooms with regard to spacing. All drains must have safety shutoffs. The pool must meet all ADA requirements. We would like an addition of a low slide. We want a confirmation that the pool will hold 705 people. We're also concerned with the proper disposal of the old pool. The Parks Department email was used to provide the community information of the proposed pool. Several of the commissioners that do not agree with some of the statements that were provided, in particular, reference to the construction of the existing pool. The existing pool proposal involved public outreach. We felt that the community pond was very important to Woodbury residents and respected their desire to maintain as closely as possible the existing shape. This leads me to what I am going to say next, which is my personal recollection of events which I have confirmed with some old timers and people that former commissioners, former chairman of the Parks and Recreation Commission. The pond was originally a natural spring-fed mud hole. We believe it was paved in the late 1960s with asphalt. In 2002, the pond was in bad shape. Walls were crumbling and the swim lanes were sinking. Those of us on the commission spent a lot of time visiting other facilities and having discussions with the community and the town board. The asphalt situation did come up at that time. While it is not commonly used in public pools, it is used in reservoirs and for pools and fish hatcheries. Also, in the 30-odd years that had elapsed, there was no real significant leakage. And so asphalt was used again. During the 2002 construction, I visited the construction site several times. An outside independent observer had been hired by the town to monitor the construction process and see that all specifications were adhered to. He used the measuring stick to measure asphalt thicknesses as it was applied. In August of 2008, water clarity became an issue. We experienced a drowning, and the county shut us down for quite a while. They required us to install an expensive filtration system which required extensive digging and resurfacing. What led to the current leakage is unknown. It is a shame that the procedures that were followed for previous pool renovations were not followed. This time around, the park commissioners were told not to get involved. The public was not asked for input. And we now have a rush to finish this pool by next season. I say, let's do more research and make sure to do it right. Thank you for your time.
I just want to correct something that you said. We didn't examine the plans. We reviewed the sketches, we had comments, we have detailed comments, and hope to provide them. But Fred used the word examine, we didn't examine them.
Anybody else of the commissioners want to speak or ask any questions? Okay, then we'll go row by row. First row. Anybody?
Hi. My name's Raymond Diaz. I rarely come to these things, but I came because I was interested in what you guys were saying. And I know that for a fact, at one point, people were saying that there was something wrong with the pool. Now that they said it, there was something wrong with the pool, and yet, you guys want to build another one? I don't understand that at all.
And why rush it?
Exactly. That was my next point. Unless you guys are sure of what you're doing, I won't have any confidence that you do. Thank you.
As far as what's different this time, as I said, I've never seen an asphalt pool. But we're not trying something different. We're using running with skill reinforcement as a tool shed. That's the standard in the industry. It's done all over the country and has been for 100 years. We're not trying to invent something new. We're doing something that we know works. As far as the rush, right now, you're faced with not having a pool next year.
That doesn't bother me.
Just,
It bothered me.
Hold your comments, please.
you're faced with not having a pool next year. There is hope from the town board that this project can be finished in time to rectify it. So we're moving as quickly as we can to maintain the option of having construction completed for next season. If consensus can't be reached, if the weather doesn't cooperate, if the bidding process doesn't go as expected, if the department takes longer than expected, if 100 things happen, we're not gonna be able to, but we're just not at a point now where we're ready to say, the hell with it, no pool next year.
I think you guys are rushing.
We are rushing.
Unless you guys know what you're doing, and obviously, what you're telling me, it's not completely sure that you guys know what you're doing.
Man is a professional pool engineer.
That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is, did you research this with other professionals? Did you get an estimate of what the hell the consensus was? You haven't.
Okay, so at this point, I just want to say, I understand it is a passionate topic. I do ask everyone to be respectful. And of course, if you have any concerns, please use the index cards. Of course, this is a hearing. And the reason why we have this hearing here is because we want to hear your voice. But understand, the town board is not looking to push something past you for a motive. We're not doing this with any motive but thinking of you as the residents. So if, at the end of the day, the residents say, and overwhelming, that this isn't gonna happen, the board will take a step back. But just understand that there are families that will be impacted. So we're trying to be a voice for everybody. So at this point, I understand it's a passionate, but I do ask everyone to let's just take it down a notch, and we're gonna continue to listen to everyone's, we may not hear everybody at one time, that's why we ask everyone to take an index card. If you agree with it, that's great, we wanna hear that, but I do wanna just ask everyone just to, we wanna hear everybody, okay? Anybody else on the first line?
Go ahead. It's okay. He's last on that row.
Hi, my name is Cindy Lotzfeidel. I've been swimming at the pond for 40 plus years, so I'd be really sad to see it go. And I think a lot of us feel the same way. I do appreciate that you are trying to maintain this facility for our town. It is a hallmark of our town. I lived here my whole life, so I'm spoiled, and I know that many people have come to our town because of the pond and the res. And I do appreciate the efforts that you've put in to maintain it. I do, however, share some of the concerns that we are rushing into something. I have 2 small children who will be heartbroken if they can't swim at the pond next year. On the same note, I'm thinking of them for years following, and I'm thinking of the families for the next 10 and 20 and 30 and more years. We do not need to rush into doing something in 1 year. If we could take a pause, follow through properly, and not rush into something. That said, I have a couple of specific questions about the plans. The existing plans indicate that there will be no food concession at the pool. I think we already are, missing the ice cream truck. I don't know if anybody remembers the ice cream truck from years back. But to say that we will now remove the food vending machines, I think is a shame. And I was wondering why that decision was made.
We never made that
It's on
decision.
the plans.
We're not removing the vending machines, we're not changing anything we have. It is a state health department requirement that you not eat in the pool. And
Okay.
that's the intent.
It's the point number, forgive me, it's very small, but it says .6, there shall be no food concessions at the pool. So I'd like to confirm.
No.
We can work on the
Maintain
wording, the
concessions.
intent is to not have people floating on a raft eating a sandwich.
Fair. That's fair. I also have a concern about safety for our youngest swimmers. I will say that when my children were very young, having a rope at about the 2-foot depth was very important to us to say, you may go to the rope, you may go no further. The first indicated rope on this plan is at the 5-foot depth, where the swim lanes begin, meaning that a young child could begin at the 0 depth and walk all the way to that first rope. That would put a young non-swimming child way over their head, and having that rope at the 2-something foot depth is a good barrier. I mean, it doesn't stop a kid who really is determined, I will say that for sure, but it is an important safety note, and if we are to proceed with this plan, I would like to see it on a safety line at a lower depth to prevent young children from
I think
wandering over their heads.
that the intent of that rope at the 5-foot area is to just distinguish the two. We have every intention of putting a safety line through there so that our young children won't go past it after a certain amount of time.
Thank you. I also appreciate that the mushrooms are maintained in this view. However, I cannot tell from the plans that you provided where the lifeguard chairs would be. And I am concerned that the lifeguards will have no visibility to the majority of this open fan-shaped area if they have 5 big mushrooms in their way. The way that they're placed today, they have a clear line of sight between the mushrooms. They're spaced well apart. In this view, unless the mushrooms are raised up or lowered down or something, or the lifeguards are raised up, or the lifeguards are placed to the side, I don't think that they will have a clear line of sight. And I'd like to confirm that the lifeguards will be appropriate place so they can do their job, which they do.
If I'm not mistaken, there will be chairs that can be moved in either direction. It won't be just a standstill like they have now. You know what I'm saying? They're portable. They can be.
Right, but a given lifeguard's in a chair, they're not moving that chair around while they're on their watch, and if the mushrooms are too close together, I do wanna make sure that they have a line.
So your concern is visibility. John, would you be able to address that?
We have,
We're using portable lifeguard chairs, which would be along the sides of the pool. The benefits of portable chairs versus fixed, as the sun moves a little bit, a fixed chair becomes useless. They can't see the glare. A portable chair, they can turn the chair slightly, maintain the flow. All of the swimmers are in a certain area, all the lifeguards can point at that area. It gives them the flexibility to make sure that their view is always that.
Okay, as long as it's not blocked by lights. I appreciate your time, and again, I urge the town and the council to take your time. Do not rush something so important. And I particularly want to thank Councilwoman Hernandez for her excellent communication and attempts to do so. It has been very helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else in the first row?
I just have a couple of questions first. Have you identified the particular location within the pool structure where the 90,000 gallons per day is actually leaving the pool?
The way the pool's basically, basically the way that the pool's constructed right now, it's basically stranded, so it's not one specific spot. If it was one specific spot, attempt to actually fix it, it's become everywhere.
So you're saying that the water is actually moving through the asphalt now,
Yes,
even though it's painted?
yes.
I'm concerned 90,000 gallons of water in our community is 90,000 gallons per minute in our community is a ridiculous amount of water. We've had a pretty wet summer, so we haven't had our usual, no outside water use. But I think that makes this an important and immediate requirement. The pool, as I think everybody will agree, is a real important part of what makes Woodbury special. And I certainly commend you for moving ahead as quickly as possible to secure some relief by next summer. Even the fact that there's no way to isolate the part that's leaking, I don't see any other alternative but to actually do a real pool. And I was very impressed with the way this is set out. It produces a lot of space without a whole lot of water required, which is important, I think, in our community. As a number of people have mentioned, when we got here, it was a dirt bottom pond. You'll notice people still use the word pond. We like the pond. The reservoir has never quite been a pond, but I think it's time for us to graduate into something where we're not paying a lot of money for maintenance and for water and for chemicals. And I think we should do it as quickly as possible.
I would like to also point out that while everybody's sitting here saying that they don't want to rush into it, as much as we want to finish it in time for July 1st, which is usually when we open up the pool, if it isn't done at that time, it will take a longer time to do it. I just want you to understand that. We would love to be done in time for next year, but if we see that this isn't working and it's not going to get done in time, we will take the proper steps to get it done and get it done right. Anybody else in row 1? Row 2? You want to say something?
Oh, no, I have to leave, so if you don't mind, I'd rather say now than leave it on,
Go ahead.
if you don't mind.
Not at all.
I don't mean to-
Not at all.
I have to pick up the kids, I'm sorry. Thank you. Hi, I'm Rob Colon, I've been here a long time too. I think, I was talking with some people here tonight who I've known a long time, and, it strikes me as such a drastic change to something that's quintessentially Woodbury. We've all seen a lot of changes in the times we've been here. My take is that a lot of those changes to Woodbury, maybe not for the people of Woodbury, but for people who visit, that's something else. So when you deal with the pond or the pool, you're dealing with something that's just, it's ours. Right? It's what makes Woodbury Woodbury, and it's ours. It's nobody else's. It's not Harriman's, it's not Chester's, whatever, it's ours. A couple of concerns I had. you know, you mentioned that there were some other sketches done that the board reviewed. I think that would have been a good time to get the public involved when there were a couple of options on the table. You know, so at least we would have felt that, you know, we're trusting you with something that's ours. So to have that input on it, I think what the Parks Commissioners mentioned about having that public input is very important. The other thing I noticed, it seemed like the swim lanes kind of separate the free swim from the diving section. So if people are utilizing them the way we think they're going to utilize them, you have either people swimming across, going past people who are doing laps, or having to get out to walk around to the diving boards. It just seems like they're, at least that's what it looks like on the board, the plans here. So it seems like if there was a way we could somehow get just some kind of access right from free swim right over to the diving boards without, you know, going through the swim lanes.
That's actually the area around those diving boards. There's an extensive area where no one is allowed to be, and it was intentionally separated to meet that requirement.
Okay, let's see.
It's
That's why we ask questions, right?
Safety concern, so that you don't have a diver landing on a swim.
That's right. Well, that's why we ask questions, right? But still, like I said, you know, we're putting a lot of faith in you guys to take care of something that is Woodbury's, and I hope we think of that when we make whatever decisions we make. Thank you.
I definitely want to thank you on that point, and I want to ensure that, just like you, I moved into the community over 15 years ago, and one of the things that attracted me most was the beautiful pond. And I think all of us up here, we all live here. We're raising our children here, or have raised children here, and we take this extremely seriously. The two factors that are most important is to fix the pool so our families can continue to enjoy it, and cost. Those are the really big factors we take into account. So we know when we listen to the taxpayer, the biggest concern, there are a number of concerns, taxes is one of them. And although there are a number of different issues going on this year, we wanted to try our best to make sure that we didn't impact the taxpayer. But if the discussion is, you know what, we want a bigger pool, understand taxes would have to rise. So that really becomes a question, if this is the concern, understand taxes would have to go up in order to compensate for the difference in price. But that's, again, if that's what the community wants, we don't have a problem.
I think when you talk taxes too, it seems like taxes go up every year no matter what. But, maybe if we saw that number ahead of time, we said, if it was this pool, if it would, I don't want to speak for anybody, but if they said, your taxes would be X amount more, there's got to be some magic number. I didn't do it. If I left, that would have been pretty cool. But if there's a number that you threw out here, and I'm going to use a ridiculously low number. So I said, oh, your taxes are $5 more. I don't want to speak for anybody, but I'm like, hey, I'll throw that extra $5 in. So I think if we saw that number and said, this is what it would be, that would help us a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody in row two?
Hi guys, I'm Patricia Spear. I work for the town as well. I moved here from Westchester 4 years ago. I didn't have the luxury that you guys have in this community. I had to drive my kids to a pool. I had to pay $80 for a park pass that lasted me a year. Plus, on top of that, $7 per person to enter the park. So, you guys have a luxury here that you guys should take advantage of. Also, if we don't push it through, there's multiple people that are going to have their jobs affected for the summer that rely on that money, such as the college students coming back from college. Me, for example, we're all on the line, so we really need to have this pool. And the kids get affected, where the kids go for swimming lessons at the pond. There's parties that happen at the pond every day. If we don't give that to you guys in the community, everybody's gonna be hurting next summer when it's 110 degrees and we have nowhere to go. So I think we need to really push it through and figure out everything else afterwards. But having a place to go other than the reservoir at 110 degrees for the summer next year, we really need to push.
Anybody else in row 2 going across?
Sandy Caprignoni. I'm not gonna ask some of the same questions as others, but, my husband's family has lived here over 100 years. My father-in-law is now 92 years old, and at a time when he remembered, he talked about Riders Pond, which was donated to the town by Mrs. Staten, Catherine Staten. He talked about, that it never should have had the cat in it, and then during the last renovation, he spoke vehemently about how wrong, what a wrong move that was. So, I guess I'm here to understand, the new pool is going on top of what's there now?
It's not being built directly on the asphalt. The asphalt will be removed and the base prepared to be a firm, buildable surface.
How is it gonna be prepared to be a firm, buildable surface if that's a spring-fed pond and there's constant movement underneath of that? And I don't care if you put a titanium vessel on top of something that's moving underneath. How is it not gonna be compromised to the point where that suddenly collapses or sinks or begins to break apart? I'm not an engineer, I don't claim to be, I just like to try to,
There are ways to do it.
okay?
We excavate to the depth we need to get to something that is solid. What's required for a pool is not very demanding. Typically, virgin ground is good as it is. But if we find it's not, we excavate further. We can bring in compacted lifts of a stone item 4. We can put in pilings if we need to. It's definitely doable to put
Okay.
a solid foundation.
With that said, are all of those maybes, might have to, whatever, is all of that factored into this current price?
Except for possible board pilings, which in this area, I've never had to do.
Okay, but have you ever worked on something this unique before?
A pool is a pool. This is a large pool.
I beg to differ with you because we were told a lot of this same during the last renovation, that I know Robin Kraus said something, I think Mr. Smith said something, I said something, my father-in-law said something, how, you know, it's not gonna work, and we were told we were totally wrong. So our trust, after 2.6 million in renovations thus far, our trust has pretty much diminished, and that's why we've asked it not to be rushed. We would have, Jackie, I know you're trying your best as far as communication, and I really respect that, but if Supervisor Palermo, if you knew about this, excuse me, my lips are dry because I'm nervous, if you knew about this back in 2018, and even bringing Mr. Petriccioni in March, why were these discussions with all of this happening back in March?
Because we were just looking into it at that
But
point.
we
Hey,
have a wealth of information in this room that,
Sandy, the last pool was built by he is still the village engineer.
it was
He
built by
re-
Dennis Lindsay, who at the time was the town engineer.
that
Okay.
the town does.
Okay, but he still
And you-
works,
If I'm not wrong.
I was not
you-
on the board, so yes, you are wrong.
Okay.
You came on, after the last one, you came on in 2010.
Correct, but everything was done before that.
Right, but if you
Okay,
also
and I'm not-
recall, it had to be rebonded
Correct,
because the bonds
but I
had to be
didn't have
increased
voting
by
on,
almost.
I did not vote on the bonding, this was all done.
I'm not saying that you did, I'm saying because of problems which were unanticipated or unknown or just they
We
didn't have the
allowed,
ability to know.
we allowed the engineer to do it twice, and they did it wrong. What more do you want me to tell you? It was done wrong.
Sandy.
We've now hired a professional pool engineer who knows what he's doing.
I understand that, but if you look in the minutes, going back those times, the boards, and I'm not saying you guys, I'm just saying the board in general, there was always an urgency and a rush to get it done before the next season. Gotta get it
Well,
done
but
before the
that's
next
not what
season.
we're doing here. You know,
That
you
is
know
what
it
we're
is.
doing.
No, it
Exactly what you're doing.
Okay,
How
can I
much
interject? Can I interject 1 minute? Sandy, so what I would propose is for you to write down specifically your concerns so we can talk to the pool engineer about it. If your concern is that there's a spring that's on the property, because in all honesty, what you're basically saying is because there's a spring, there's nothing, that the ground is not dependable. And because of that, your concern is that the pool, when it's created on a foundation, the foundation's not firm.
I'm saying with constant movement underneath, anything.
So
where there's
that's your
constant
concern.
movement.
So
That is
So
my-
essentially, if that's your concern, either the engineer has not provided sufficient information for you to feel firm.
I'm concerned that the engineer in all of his expertise, and believe me, I'm not questioning your expertise. I'm just questioning if you've never worked with something so unique like this before, how can we possibly go through this? What if we have a terribly harsh winter or a terribly cold winter and then the ground freezes and there's so many variables and possibilities that I don't think have been looked into.
I've built as far down as Atlantic City, as far up as Canada.
Mhm.
We've had cold.
On something like this.
We've done it in swamps. We've done it in clay. We've done it in sand. And we've had a lot of different conditions. Exactly what conditions you're describing, I'm not 100% clear. I mean, I understand what you're saying. But yes, we've had a lot of different conditions. But at the end of the day, we need to know 2,000 pounds per square foot bearing capacity in the soil. We need to know that we can deep water. That's what's required for a concrete swimming pool. And that is what we will provide. Whether that means putting in interceptor trenches around the pool to divert groundwater away from the pool, we can do that. That's not unusual.
Okay, so then most of the rest of my questions are financial. What contingency, what's the percentage of contingency built into the bids as far as what are you looking for from the contractors and?
By the time we get the final design construction plans, we typically allow for 15%.
Okay, so if it's already gone out to bid, what are they bidding on?
There were plans that are at the town clerk's office and at Al Fusco's office. A combination of Al Fusco and John getting together and putting in the specifications for the pool.
Right, but am I not getting something?
Yeah.
You just said that this is something you're going to do, but the bids are out, so isn't it, how can the bids be out?
Okay, so Sandy, again, not to interrupt you, but we do have a lot.
Okay.
What I would recommend, again, your concern from what I'm hearing, your concern is, it's a spring, you wanna know that there is that there will be a foundation there, that this pool will not fall or, so we have noted your concern and of course the financial aspects. So you wanna kinda know, well, if this requires more, is there additional? So we have noted that and we will get those answers for
Okay, I
you.
just have one other question. Parkland fees. In March of 2018, Supervisor, I had asked you how much was in park land fees, you said about 275,000. You said a portion may go to pay back the building fund for the res building. Later in September, you said it wasn't gonna be that way. So,
Sandy, again, we've gotta be relevant to the pool right now.
it is.
Okay,
I would like to
okay.
know, I would like to know,
It, yeah.
Hold on a second, hold on,
I just would
folks,
like to know,
folks.
our
Your parkland fees are not paying for this.
why can't they offset some of the price?
They probably can, but there are gonna be other things that need to be done in the park once the pool is done, which will be paid for through your parkland fees.
But the park land
Thank-
fee should be
Sandy,
up
I
to
understand.
100,000, and
Sandy.
there's 175,000 in it now.
How much is in there now?
175,000.
Okay,
And according to your math and the COs that have come in paying parkland fees, there should be somewhere around $500,000, between $400,000 and $500,000 in the account.
we did build a building that cost $300,000 and
You said none of that was
$400,000.
going to be coming out of parkland
not
fees,
true.
that it was
You did
coming
say
out of the
that,
building
Frank.
fund.
Okay, at this point,
Let's move
Frank,
on.
I gotta interject.
Move on.
Okay, at this point, again, if you have any questions, please place them on a question. This is relevant to the pool at the time. If there's any other concerns, you can write them on a card. Again, we will address these concerns. If you have concerns about the finances and things like that, we can address that. But right now, we're talking about the design of the pool, again, and I just ask everybody just to stay focused on those items so we can hear everybody in the community. Okay, at this time, we are at second row, please.
Good evening, Chris Graziano, Highland Mills. I'm gonna go at this from a little bit of more of a technical perspective. First, I just wanna say thank you to Jackie, because you and I spoke about this.
Thank you, Sudhir, but it is the board. I
And
do
the board,
represent the
I'll
board.
give everybody, thank you to everybody for the communications, because this is something we spoke about last time. And this is the only way you're ever gonna get community buy-in to do anything, is to get the community involved in what we're doing. I'm glad to see this many people out here tonight, because this does my heart good, because if we did this in an empty room, apathy is what kills everything.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad to see everybody here, it's really good. Got a couple questions for you. Sandy brought up the point about the spring. You have the ability to divert water, put gravel down, and move the spring around the pool, so you can compact and lay proper sub-base? Correct. Okay, I just wanna make sure of that. Secondly, I agree that the leak in the pool, which is 90 gallons a minute, which actually is 130,000 gallons per day, is insane. So something definitely needs to be done, because we cannot be leaking that much water. The water is a precious resource, and it's going into the environment. It's a shame, so we do have to do something. And I want to say I agree with that as well. Something has to be done, because you cannot be leaking that much water every day. The other question I have is, dealing with regulatory agencies on a normal basis, what % of confidence do you have, because I have zero, that you are going to get permitted through the health department in time to open this thing in July? I have zero confidence that's ever gonna happen.
If we were ready today, I think we would have a good chance.
There we go with the instigate.
No, this is not a criticism. I have so many projects before health departments, they take forever to approve anything.
I deal with Orange County Health Department very regularly, their typical turnaround, 12 to 16 weeks. This is gonna be a more complicated project than they're used to. I have already met with them preliminarily to go through conceptually what we're doing, to give them a chance to research the approvals that were granted previously as to what's there. Part of what we're doing is to make sure that we don't have to revise the mechanical systems. We're intending to keep the pool filters, end pumps, disinfection system, all of that substantially unaltered, which minimizes what they need to do. So if we can get the process rolling in the near future, it's the substantial delay, then we won't make it. But as I said earlier, we're not trying to force this to happen, we're just trying to maintain the ability.
No, I
understand, that wasn't a criticism, it's just something that I was thinking of as you're going through. And the other thing is, what percent of design are you at right now in the project?
Assuming that there's no change, we're about 75.
So that's plenty, usually it's 60% you go out for bid, so somebody has a question about bidding, so, usually 60% design you go out for bid. So I'm assuming that's what you guys did. All right, and the last question I have is, one of the reasons I moved here as well is because of the Parks and Recreation we have here, so I think this whole discussion is a really good discussion. Like, the question I have is, are you gonna continue to use the same disinfectant for the chlorine from the pool, or have you guys just considered maybe going to a saltwater hypergeneration system that's much more friendly to the environment in this project? It's just a technical question.
Salt is not allowed in New York State. Outdoor pool. I cannot maintain water chemistry without the use of cyanuric acid, and cyanuric acid is a major chemical in the water.
Yeah, because I work with hypergeneration all the time for the water industry, so it's really a nice environmentally friendly way to do things. All right, well, I get that. So, but anyway, again, I thank everybody for the information session. I'm glad to see everybody here. And you answered my questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, CJ. We're looking at the second row.
My name is Miles Powell. I've been a resident of Woodbury for close to 40 years now. My question is, how much of the loss of water is related to the drawdown by communities that are being built around us? And has that been taken in? And will that affect us with the new pool? All right, because there's communities in Monroe that homes are being affected by, their wells are being affected because of other wells being drilled, and they're losing their ability to have fresh water. How much is gonna affect us with the communities being built around us? And if it had been factored in with allowing all those homes, 471 homes across the street, okay? And what kind of effect will that have on our
The
business?
water loss we're talking about is water leaking out of the pool. Nothing to do with who's
Okay,
getting more water.
when the people across the hill there start drilling wells, they've been sucking water out of Monroe for years now. And their hope right now, with their new construction that is right on the borderline of Woodbury, is to tap into the aqueduct, all right?
Right, but
So until that happens, they're still gonna be sucking the water out of the ground, which is underneath.
Sir, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to be clear on your concern. Is your concern about the pool or about people taking water?
My concern is about the pool for the water. You have a well, once you start using that pool, I have a pool in my yard. You have to replenish water in that pool due to evaporation, all right?
So your concern
How is
is
that gonna affect, you're saying the well right now is just barely making it, that's dug there, or whatever, 130,000 gallons a day. But if another community is drawing down on our water, the aquifer, how's that gonna affect our pool in the near future?
Assuming the pool's
I
replaced.
mean, has an engineer been contacted to figure that in?
Assuming the pool is replaced, normal water loss in a pool is roughly half an inch on a daily basis due to evaporation and splashing. So you'll be replacing half an inch a day in a pool that's a third the size as opposed to up to a foot a day in a pool 3 times the size. So you're going to be using substantially less water.
Because there used to be a stream that used to run from that Stanton's property underneath Dunderberg Road and used to feed the pond years ago. That has dried up. So, thank you.
We have Bob that is going to respond to you.
I don't remember, and I've been here since '82, and I don't remember stream ever feeding the pool, and I've lived here for 56 years. And I don't remember it came from that area where the WP3.
We used to run every day. My son, when he was born, he used to play in that stream.
But that did not feed the pool.
Yes.
No, it didn't. The same well that we have, not the same pump, the same well fed the pool. And that's fed it since the 50s.
But you didn't have the population that you did.
Okay, let's go to row 3. Oh, I'm sorry.
The second row, we're right on, I think we're finished. And again, I see that it's 8 o'clock, we just
I'll be
want,
quick.
yeah, thank you, we just wanna make sure we get to everybody in the back.
And Mr. Petracone, is it?
Interesting.
Petrosine, okay.
Close enough.
So where have you done your projects before?
All over
In
New
this,
York.
in this area?
Yes, I've done a lot.
And Long Island?
Long Island I stay out of.
Oh, I thought you said you found them in Long Island.
No.
I misheard you.
No, I was speaking to a construction company that builds pools, and he said, do you have a pool engineer? And I says, no, I don't. And he says, well, you've got one in your backyard. He lives in Monroe, and his name is John Petrosini. I would, recommend him. That's how much.
Okay, so in your experience, how close do you come in? So we're saying 3.5 million. What are the chances of that going over? I know you said you budget 15%, but you're in construction. I mean,
Right.
isn't it like a necessary evil?
A lot of it's gonna depend on time. I mean, my estimate is good for now.
Why timing?
Steel has gone up roughly 40%
Yeah.
in the last year. Stainless steel gutters have skyrocketed. Prices, YMCA and Monroe Woodbury, they have a little over a year delay. Their budget blown out of the
Well,
water.
that's why I'm asking the question, because they're way over. And what is our plan if that happens? You can't stop midway. So if we're only bonded for 3.5 million, what happens? Do we go out for another bond, and at what point do we not? I mean, there's gotta be a reasonable estimation of how far over you can go. So when you say timing is everything, what time frame are we talking about? Now, between now and 3 months from now, tomorrow?
If we get pricing now, meaning in the next few months as part of this process that we're in, the suppliers will honor that for us.
Okay.
If
On
you-
their honor handshake or contractually? No, I'm asking, because this is construction, this is what
Depending
happens.
on which specific products it is, some of them will have a written contract guaranteeing that price.
Okay.
Others will do it,
Word of mouth, yeah.
knowing that not doing so, the contractors I've worked with, myself, we give a lot of money to these suppliers.
Yeah.
They make millions of dollars, and they do know where their money comes from, so they're not looking to create a problem.
Okay. So being that we don't know, this is my last question, I promise, that we don't know, when we look at this picture, what this is gonna look like when you dig it up. Is there any way you can move the design so that it's not on a spring? You have a lot of open room here. Why does it have to be here, is my question. Is it because of the pumps? Is it, have you thought about that?
We put it there as my initial for proximity to the filtration. Could it be moved? Anything can be done.
Well, I think that it would be prudent to figure out how much more money you would need if it were somewhere else, not right here, off to the side, so that you're hedging the fact that you'll have half in the springs and half not, and figure out how much money it would be to run the filtration that far versus if you had to put those pillars in. So I would be prepared with something like that, and I think that would be a
Tara, we're gonna direct that question to Bobby,
Okay.
he might be able to give a little more insight.
great. Thank you.
I know they call it spring, but I'm not sure it's a spring, it's just a low end. There was tests done, and the test showed where all groundwater comes, and it just seems to go, which I guess is what a spring is.
Yeah.
It's a lowland area, so it goes to the lowest point, and that's where we get the water.
And the lowest point is in the middle of the pool, like
It's
that's.
because it's the deepest point. If we dug a
Right.
hole 50 feet over, that's where you're gonna get the water.
Okay. I would keep that in your back pocket in case, my suggestion. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, anyone else from the second row? Okay, we're gonna move to the third row, John?
Jonathan Fuller, Highland Mills. My question is retrospective. A number of people have talked about how well the board has communicated with the community, considering how important this pond is to all of us. And considering that you've been working on this, been aware that it had to be done for over half a year now, that you're 75% along in the design process, and seeing how many people are interested in having input, is there a reason that you didn't involve the community any earlier than this?
Good question.
It is a good question, John, and I'm gonna bring it back to the board is listening. So, if
The
there.
board is listening, but you're not allowing the people to speak by not letting them know what's happening.
And that's why we're having this informational hearing right now. So again, do you have
Half a
any,
year late.
do you have a concern that we need to address in this? I want to stay focused on proactiveness, and I understand, John, that there's frustration, and we're trying to make this as best of a process as possible. So I'm gonna ask you at this time, do you have a concern about the design that you would like us to address?
I have a concern about the design process, and the design will evolve. Seeing as you and the board have been rather unwilling to involve the community before this point, I don't know why I should have faith in you going forward. You have apparently instructed the Parks Commission not to have input before this point.
That's not true, John.
That's
That-
what
that
the
is-
Parks,
yeah, well, that's
then
what they
take it
say.
up with them, because they have
Well,
said
then
as
don't
much.
say, but don't say it.
Okay,
I'm
at
telling
this
you
time,
it's not
John,
true.
And I'm telling you, that's what they have reported, more
Your
than one
concern,
of them.
John, I'm sorry, your concern right now is the process. So I'm noting that the process, and as a board, we will work on that for the future. So the process, because at this point now, this is where we're at.
All right, I am shut down by you, thank you. I
No,
have
don't order.
no reason to think that your words now will mean any more than they should have meant 6 months ago. And I'm just hoping people here will keep an eye on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not gonna stay around till something.
Anybody else? Third row? Anybody else?
Wyatt Corman, Master Jacobo, Highland Mills, New York. If this is the people's pool, why not let the people decide?
Yes.
Make it a referendum.
Yes.
Make it a referendum and let the people decide if that's what they want to do.
That's what we wanna do, right, guys?
Yeah, we do.
Yes, that's what we wanna
Let
do.
the people decide.
If you can't control yourself, we'll ask you to leave. Plain and simple. Okay?
I think the people pretty much here, pretty much.
I think at this point, we're gonna ask you if you can again identify what concern you have about the pool. That right now is the discussion,
My concern is that the people should decide.
and we have the people here. I need you to speak on behalf of yourself, please. What is your concern about the design?
There's no concern about deciding.
Okay, so at this point, I would like you to allow someone else to come to the podium.
And an officer died, and I also feel it's disrespectful that the flag is flying in full staff
Thank you.
outside.
We'll make the adjustment, thank you. Anybody else from the third row that would like to speak in reference to the pool? Can I just say this? Again, we're here to listen. If the community feels that we're not here in good faith, then I question, what is it that you would like to talk about? Because if you want to talk about the process, we understand, and we are trying to make that correction for those people who want to talk. If you want to use this as a way to vent, I understand, but this is not the place right now. If you would like to come to the office and have the board's full attention, we will meet with you and you can vent. But at this time, I want to give everyone the opportunity to talk about the pool. That is what we're focused on, because we need to hear this so that the board can make a decision. So at this time, I do ask everyone to be very respectful, because we're trying our best to be respectful to the community, to the residents. So again, let's focus on proactive, positive suggestions. Let's make this work for the community, because that's why we're here. Third row, last call for third row. I'm going to the fourth row. Fourth row, anyone from the fourth row that would like to comment? Denise?
Denise Kingdom Highland Mills and Woodbury Parks Commission. Fred did a little paraphrasing. Safety should be considered before cost. So there was something about taxes and size of the pool, but safety should be considered before cost. At our meeting last week, one of the first questions we said is about borings being taken, and borings should be taken so that we know the groundwater elevation. That'll answer one of these questions. We also had some concerns about the mushrooms.
Do you wanna address the questions, or do you just wanna listen?
Well, I think that was a similar comment that a lot of people had about the groundwater
As
elevation.
far as the borings, I agree with you, we should do testing. If we're ready to commit right now, we're not having a pool next year, we can go out and we can dig a hole in the middle of the pool. We can determine those soil conditions. I have reviewed with the town engineer. He agrees, we absolutely do need a pool. We're trying at this point to leave every option open for the town. So what we're currently planning on is doing those evaluations of the existing soils early on when we're ready, getting ready for the construction. But I do agree with you, it doesn't.
So, as far as the mushrooms, we feel that at least 2 should be placed along the wading area, the entry slope, similar to existing. Some people don't want to necessarily enter the water. We had similar concerns about the lifeguard chair placement in the view shed and the mushrooms potentially blocking. Was the existing?
You saw the 5 mushrooms,
Right.
so you want them out of the water?
At least 2 of them possibly out of the water. Some people don't want to enter the water. And right now, they're on the gradual slope and they're not entering the water.
Okay. We can do that if I take them out of the water, they have to be disinfected. Which is
It's just a consideration. These were some of our comments. To just see how they're enjoyed now and.
It's something that a lot of people want, when they hear that it's 50,000 per, to do that, they usually change their mind fairly quickly.
This is the first we're hearing on the cost. And has the condition of the existing mushrooms been reviewed? Are they okay to relocate?
I would say yes, they're just like they were put in. I mean, they're faded from the sun, but other than that, they're fiberglass and they're in perfect condition.
There's a pool alarm. Is that going to be tied into the police?
It can be, that will be up to the town how you want to handle it.
Who is reviewing the plan specs and schedule cost estimate for engineering content?
I and your town engineer will be preparing them, the portions of my work that I do on my own, your town engineer will review. The Board of Health will also be overseeing and reviewing all of our work.
Who will be managing the construction inspection?
The same group, we'll have the town engineer out there on a fairly continuous basis. I'll be out there for the pool-specific construction, and the Board of Health is also involved in inspection work during.
Because the concerns were that the board brought up that last time it wasn't done properly, and we were under the impression last time that inspections were done. So we have that concern.
If you're building a pool that's a manner of construction that really just isn't done, inspections are difficult. When we're doing something that is the standard, everyone knows what's expected.
When you're using public funds, though, it should be inspected.
And I typically go out and I look at the wire tie, I put a piece of steel, and make sure it's all there, before that goes in, I can see the gun in, we check every piece of pipe, we check every joint, and that's a standard, and the health department assists.
What is the expected pool life?
For the shell itself, roughly 100 years. For the plumbing, 40 to 50 years.
Is a construction schedule available? What are the main milestone dates, and have the review periods for Board of Health been incorporated?
We do not have a schedule at this point, but basically, as I've said, we're trying to do everything we can to maintain the possibility of next year. So the schedule is just going to move forward. As that happens, if we set a target date that's further in the future, yes, we'll work backwards to come up with specific dates.
And some of the concerns that we expressed last time is that the lifeguard staff, the pool employees should have been consulted in the initial concepts. So I'd just like to reiterate that. And we submitted, prepared notes, and they also include, which I know we're just talking about the pool, but the site improvements, which our understanding is that the site improvements are gonna be taken care of by the town, and that includes what we would like to see, what should be done, is ADA access to the pool, to the concessions, to the bathrooms. So those have been submitted.
Hi, I'm Willa Frigan. I want to thank you for doing this, whether it's timely for everybody or not, it's happening, and I'm very appreciative of it. I just have two questions. The current pavement is going to be removed. Where is it going to be moved to?
Don't have an answer. Your town engineer will be preparing the specs on that. The town has a site where they wanna deposit it, or we think that the contractor's responsibility to properly dispose of it. One way or another, it will be properly disposed of off-site.
And then my second question is, there'll be soil brought in, where is that coming from? Has it been tested?
That-
We have an Apira right by us, and I don't want to see
No,
soil brought in
no,
from
no.
another site.
It's, the soil has already been brought in, it's off to the side. It's from the 131 project, which has all been tested, so it's a good thing.
It's not, we went through that before. It's not.
Let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, from that same row, any other residents that would like to talk? I don't see anyone else, so we're gonna go to the back crowd. We have a number of people on the back, so yeah, you just raise your hand and let me know, and we'll get you to the podium.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dennis Rocks. I'm a resident. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think it's very important to keep our eye on how blessed we are to have both the pond and the res. And I think we're also blessed to have such a great recreation department. I think Fran and Joe do a great job. And I think our buildings and grounds do a great job as well. So I think we've got to keep our eye on that. So here are my questions. So I understand that there's a number of 300 bathers that was estimated as the maximum. Was that counting heads? How was that number arrived at?
I was there quite often this summer, and I was there on some of the hottest days of the year, and I did count by head.
Thank you. Then there was the proposal, a very nice proposal, nice job. And we talked about a design for 400 bathers. And
We currently have a little over 700.
so I'm going back to the proposal. I'm trying to go from 400 to 700. Did something happen?
I was given originally a target number of, I believe, 600 bathers, but then also components. A lap pool with a minimum of a certain number of lap lanes, the diving area, and then a beach entry, and just putting those pieces together, we're gonna meet the needs for the town. We ended up with a capacity of 700.
Okay. Now with the 700, I think one of the ways you get at that is with the bather loading rates. They have square footage per bather, depending upon if it's shallow, deep, whatever the case. And I think for shallow, it's 1 per 15 square feet. And so I think that's a great criteria for you doing your design, but I think it's important to consider that separately from a comfort standpoint. 15 square feet is 3.9 by 3.9 feet. It's not a lot of room. And so I think it's important to distinguish from a design basis bather loading rate versus how much room do these kids need to go nuts?
I agree with you, there is a big difference. By health code, we have about 700. By building code, I could probably get 1,200. Realistically, we're probably more in the 600.
Okay. I think that's high, but moving along. I see in the plans that there's a note talking about the discharge, and I think it says the discharge needs to be sequestered for 10 days. Am I right about that?
If it is not gonna be dethorned, yes.
So, do you know which one? Because I think it also said that you're not involved with that.
Well, if it's at the end of the year and they wanna drain the entire pool, let it sit for 10 days and then drain it. Why use chemicals, dechlorinate water that's not being used?
So during,
If we need to discharge rainwater after a storm to get the pool open again, and you wanna have it done immediately, then yes, you use dechlorination chemicals.
okay. I know that I'm not allowed to talk about the other facilities tonight, I'm not going to, but I just want to say that I think that's a mistake, and a mistake for two reasons. First of all, I don't think you can divorce the pool from the rest of the facilities. I think we need the plan, and it needs to be a plan that includes everything. And then I think when we see things and we think maybe this could be better, this could be improved, maybe we don't know the full story. Maybe you guys know some things we don't know. And I think it's also about trust. We need to establish a level of trust with this board. And by knowing what you're doing with the other facilities and what you have and why you haven't done something in the past, will help us to establish some trust with you folks and what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really quick, I just want to respond to that. So, just understand, we weren't taking other items off the table. I say in the beginning, I don't know if you were here, that I did ask if there was any other items that you wanted to ask questions about, to write it on the index cards. We were just kind of limiting it to the pool right now because that's really what drew everyone to the meeting. But we are interested, and if there's any concerns or ideas that you think would make it better, we would love to hear it.
I do, and I just think it's gotta be considered in its entirety. The plan's gotta be comprehensive, not the pool, and out, and the rest later. There's a communication between the guard room and the bathroom, and the communication there needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, from the back, you could raise hands and I can point out. Yeah, and the green shirt, sorry, I don't know. You should identify yourself.
I'm Ed Carroll from Central Valley. I'd like to thank the rec department, they have a great staff and everything's wonderful. I love the pond, the res, I swim there every day. The only concern I have is that you made sure that the water leakage was from percolation. The ground around the pool itself wasn't wet. There was no dirt coming up out of the bottom of the pool. So before you go on this big, I don't know if you use geophones to find out where your water was leaking from, just to make sure it's not from a pipe. Because that's a lot of water, and you would see, the other thing, like Sandy brought up, the old swim lanes were cement, and they were at the far end of the pool, and they used to sink because of the stream, and that was cement. So there's water under there that can cause things to sink on the original pond, and that was not asphalt, that was cement swim lanes. But I just want to make sure that you're not ripping up a beautiful pool just because it's unconventional. I want to make sure that the leak was from percolation. That's a lot of water, and there's not a lot of evidence that was coming from that. You check, was it from a valve or a pipe or something else?
There is the pipe work that runs around the pool for the returns is built like a French drain. So once we get up to that level, and it starts to get to the level of French drain, we dug it up, we had somebody come up and dig up, it just starts flowing right into basically the French drain and running out of the pool.
First year, Bobby, you didn't have any leakage?
No, we've had leakage
From day
since day one, but
Okay.
it just continually got worse and worse and worse, and now we can't control it.
Okay. I just want to make sure it was all checked. Thank you. And thank you to the rec department for the great job. Thank you.
Just continue moving up, thank you.
Good evening, Great Hernandez, a few questions. One, has the board discussed with the engineer on the warranty concerning this major project? Is there any talks on warranting your work on this pool?
There's not normally an engineer's warranty, there is a warranty structure.
And typically, how many years does a warranty last for?
On the equipment, it's usually for 2 years. You're using mostly pre-existing equipment that you've had for significantly longer than that. So that would not be warranted. It's equipment you already own, already use, it would be an extension. The they maintain plumbing, they'll typically give a substantial warranty. If they're not winterizing it, where they can't be sure that it's being taken care of, they don't like to carry the warranty. If they don't winterize it, they can't guarantee it's not being damaged by freezing. So that's things that will need to be discussed by the board directly with the division contractors.
Thank you. One thing that, no one has discussed tonight, which is, alarming to me as a resident and a father of 4 children, is the impact of not having this pool ready come July 1st, the impact it will be, or would take on our community and our families. My question is for Joey and Bobby and maybe Brad, if you have insight on this. How many families would you say enjoys the pool every summer? How many families come to the pool? How many children? If you could explain the activities that goes on throughout the summer with this pool for our community.
This year, we had 16,000 people visit the pool. That's in 10 weeks. Plus, I think 5,000 guests. So it's like 21,000 people come to our pool. And that's been the average for the last couple of years. We have swim lessons at our pool. We have field day at our pool. We have barbecues at our pool. We have barbecues every week. There's birthday parties. There's the game room at the pool that the kids love. So at the end of the year, you're almost at 20,000 people using the pool.
So in your opinion, because you are the director of the rec department, in your opinion, if the pool doesn't open in July, would it be devastating to this community?
Absolutely.
Yep. What about all the people that walk to the pool, that have no car, nowhere else to go?
My next question, Joey, is approximately how many people does the Parks Department employs in the pool?
Well,
At the pool, or total?
Total, we had 104 people in the pool.
And that consists of what? What type of individuals?
That's the gatekeepers.
A moment, I just put my speaker on. Okay. Mr. Hernandez, we have to be focused on the pool.
Okay, if we could just let Joey finish.
No, we have to stay focused on the pool.
So, my next question is, everyone up on the dais, is everyone in an agreement and in support of the engineer and what needs to be done in this, with concern to this pool and this project? In other words, I'd like to get a roll call done on everyone on the dais.
I would say that the entire board is in favor. We voted for the $3.5 million. And I would assume that Bobby and Brad and Joe, who have been in my office, practically every.
Hold on,
hold on.
Just hear from them.
No, but I'm telling you, with respect to them, they're the ones that came to me, telling me that we needed to move forward. Now, if they just wanna say yes, and they're in favor of it, they can say it, it's up to them.
I would like to get an answer.
I'm very confident in the engineer. Just talking to him, seeing his drawings. I'm not sure about how confident I am in the timetable. It is gonna be getting close. The reason we're having this problem is the town did not hire an engineer that had ever designed a building project. I don't know why, I don't know the circumstances, but that was our big mistake, and that was 10 years ago. So we can't blame anybody else, what we gotta do is continue to go forward. And I think the town's done a great job by finding someone that this is what he does for them.
Mr. Brad? I like the design of the pool. It could be a little bit bigger, but ultimately that's going to be kind of your guys' decision on what's the cost for that. But as far as design, I think it's a good design, and I agree with Bob. I mean, if it doesn't have it soon, you might just realistic, knowing how construction works, nothing ever goes smoothly. So if it's 6 months and you've got 6 months, so realistically, you're not going to get it. Joey, from a community perspective, the impact, what's your opinion on this?
I'm 100% confident
Well, speaking for myself, I have confidence in every single one of you that are sitting there before us, especially our town board, especially our wife.
Okay, Mr. Hernandez.
And
At
I
this point, we
hope,
gotta cut it.
I hope that the board will move forward so we can have a pool come July 1st for our.
Thank you. Let's keep the questions going, guys. Awkward. Okay. All right. We need a laughing moment. Don't worry about that. Again, we gotta stay focused on the pool. So I do want to hear, I know De Jesus, Mr. De Jesus, you said that you wanted to come on. Thank you.
Jesus Gomez, Jones. My question is, we said the 3.5 was for the current pool now, the bond for that size. Are there any other sizes that you guys took into consideration, how much that was going to cost? Because I think that's why everyone's so upset. Because at least have 3 or 4 options to throw out there with the numbers. And say, listen, what the big pool that you guys want? Because I really don't care how much whatever other parks have and how big they are. I care about our community because that's what we have been paying for as long as I've been here, it's 21 years. And we're all happy with the size it was then. Now, if you put out, I guess, that size with how much that would cost down to, say, holding less than that, but a competent amount, and this is what it costs, and then to the lowest end, and then have us pay.
Sure.
Instead of just telling us, listen, we're gonna be this size, and this is what you're gonna pay for.
So the recommendation is to give a number of options.
But we were told this is what you're getting. There was no say that there was gonna be this, we took this into consideration, that was too much, and this one was too much, and this is how we came into choosing.
So just to clarify, you're basically saying that if we considered a larger pool, you would be okay with the taxes going up? No, I'm just saying, I'm not saying like it's gonna skyrocket, but understand that it would, obviously, if you go bigger, the taxes would, the amount would go up.
So the bigger one, exactly what we have, how much that would cost, and this is your option.
So cost comparative.
Or, yeah, because they would, at least in different sizes also. Full size, to maybe a quarter of it, to half of them, maybe 3/4, and then have price amounts on whichever it was, how much the bond is for each one. Then maybe the town would be so orange, because then you say, we don't want to say, have to pull back at least.
Sure.
And it's gonna cost you 5.2.
I know that we did play this, I played that kind of like, well, if we went this big, how much would, and I know, John couldn't give us like exact numbers, because obviously there's a lot more. But John, when we had our conversation today, I threw a couple of numbers out. Could you kind of give a comparison as far as, increments of?
But to rebuild what you have now, using more traditional construction methods and meeting all the current health requirements, you're looking at ballpark $18 to $20 million. It's a very large pool. With what we're doing right now, we're creating a new swimming pool, but we're able to utilize the existing mechanical systems. Just to give you an idea, one filter that's in your pool right now costs roughly $250,000. You have 3 of them. What you have, you're able to handle the proposal. We're gonna add for the size of what we're currently proposing, we're going to need more filters. So that's another $1 million in just filters. Then we're gonna have pumps, we're gonna have plumbing, we're gonna have additional disinfection equipment, and it's all doable. Basically what we did was as big a pool as we can without redoing a mechanical building you have. Once we start adding pumps and filters, there's not room in that building. So not only are we adding additional equipment, we're either building an expansion to the building or a second building. So the cost is not a linear thing. There are certain thresholds that will incur significant additional expense by increasing the size.
If we had that big pool, would we use that pool or?
The swimming space, what's the difference in the amount of swimming space we actually use now?
Swimming space right now is at roughly 44,000 square feet.
Of actual swim space that we use?
From what I'm,
No.
from what I'm
It
told,
is half of
it's
it.
less than 20,000.
So, and what is it gonna be now? Like, cause I don't think anybody's really paying attention to what we actually use.
Right now, you currently, according to the reports, use about 20,000 square feet of frontage. We're proposing an pool that would be 13,000 for
And that pool that he's talking about, which is about, 20,000 square feet, is not completely used. We go there all the time, and half the pool that we actually use is not used. And the reality of it is quarter of the size would be an appropriate size for the amount of people that come and to use our pool. I mean, this is, very few towns in this county even have a pool. And the fact that we have something, and we're trying to give you something large enough and affordable, I really find fascinating how they're so against it. When I put up the price when the price went up on Facebook, all the people in here that told me this should be larger were screaming that it was 3.5 million. What do you think it's going to be if you go bigger? I mean, we're trying to be responsible. We're trying to keep it so that people can use the pool. They can go there. They have a place to go. I think it's a luxury that we have. It's not a necessity, but it is a luxury. And this town board has always supported our park system. We want to keep it going. We want that facility to remain a place that people can go and swim. But we all have to be realistic and logical about it. I mean, you know, it's nice to have a pool the size that we have now. In fact, when people see it and they talk to me, they look at me and go, "What the hell size pool do you guys have?" It's astronomical compared to what you would have. That would be a lake in some places. But the reality of it is we're looking to build a facility that will still allow people to come swimming. It'll be safe. It'll be something that you could walk into. A lot of people have written to me on the town board, the public, you know, are you gonna take away our walk-in, you know, because they like that walk-in. A lady was asking about the 2-foot level. Of course we're gonna put ropes up and everything, because I don't want my grandson walking out there and drowning, okay? And my grandson uses the pool. So the reality of it is we're trying to make a clean, safe, workable pool that is affordable to this community. Thank you.
Mr. DeJesus, were there any other questions? I'm sorry, this kind of you got hijacked.
Sorry about that, Jesus.
All right. Listen, I don't think anyone's arguing what you're saying. It was the options for us to have.
No, and I understand
From a
that.
small one, like you said now, to maybe a medium size and big. And let us choose, because ultimately we are the ones paying for it, not you, not the board. It's our tax money.
Well, we all
But we pay taxes too.
No, yeah, I'm saying, but you just make the decision. It seems like you just made the decision without giving us the option to choose. Some of us might have said, oh, we don't want any pool because we don't want to pay anymore to the pool because of all the problems they had since it was fixed and it was already leaking. So if the option from none to the, not saying that I didn't want to, but from none to the quarter to a half and then to a full size, and let us choose. And I think that's why a lot of people are upset. I don't think they're saying no, they didn't want it, and you said, of course, we know it's the more the bigger you get, the more it's gonna cost.
I
It
would
was
tell
just the choices, and
I'm
that's why this was getting hijacked about feelings and all that, because the choice
Absolutely,
wasn't
it's an
made.
emotion, yeah, it's emotional and we're all attached to it.
Besides, having us choose, you know, how much of a pool we really do want. Because do we need that size pool? Probably not, but hey, it's good to have if you can have it. You know?
Thank you so much.
I would like to also just add to that. When we had our meeting and John was there and he gave us the cost of the pool and you know, maybe with my age, I'm missing the hearing and everything. But I thought he said it was gonna be about $250,000. And Joey came up to me and said, no, Frank, he said 2.5 million at the minimum. And my jaw dropped. And now we're at 3.5. So, listen, we have to be responsible in what it's gonna cost as well. And yes, you're right, there are a lot of people that don't use the pool. And listen, there are a lot of people who tell me, we don't need a pool, because they don't use it, or they have their own pools. But there are a lot of people that don't. And this summer, when it was up over 100 degrees, we opened the pool earlier so that people can go there to get some relief from the heat. So that's what this is really all about. It's about, yes, the majority, 16,000 people showed up. A lot of them are repeats and everything. We only have 11.5 thousand people that live in this community, but it makes a huge difference for those people who don't have pools and who love to go there and socialize. You know?
Okay, we have another comment?
Hi, my name is Christine Darrow Hennessy, and I just wanted to point out and understand, ask, and help the community understand a few questions. When we had the $9 million municipal building presented in front of us, there was a process. The process that I understood was one, securing the bond as one process, and confirming the plans for another. And I questioned, how can you go forward with securing the bond before presenting the plans to the community and having the community have input on that? And it was my understanding that at that time, we were voting for a bond for a location and a building. The difference between this, the pool, is this building, this so-called project, the location already exists. So when we were opposed for that bond, it was for a proposed location, and we wanted input on that. We are still wanting input like we did in the municipal building to say, hey, okay, great. You have to secure that bond because you're upgrading an existing location, which you guys spend a lot of money on both boards, improving our community day in and day out, millions of dollars that the public doesn't even see. And we put trust in you on that. But I agree with the community that we want to see options. And that's exactly what we wanted to see when we were doing the municipal building, is options, and we wanted the ability to vote on it. In order to have options for the municipal building, we were asked to trust that you are providing us the best option at the best budget, not affecting our taxes, which is what you are doing now. And the community had to pull together options to present to the public. We had to work hard. We had to put in our time. We had to put in monies. We had to draft up options to present to you, the boards, the combined boards, to say, okay, well look, we want to show you that there are options. And the reason why the town and the village did not present options to us at the time, from what they said, is that options cost more money. And this is just concept. So if you were to go out now and say, all right, I'm going to give you A, B, and C at different values for each, it's going to cost you engineering to do that research, to have that drafted, and to present those options. And the board is asking for trust that yes, we will do our due diligence. We're trying to rush this in time to give you a service without interruption for next year. But we are presenting this to you in the way in which we have it. I understand a couple of months ago, you didn't really have anything to present. Just like the $9 million municipal building, as I've learned from in the past, you have to get to a certain point to have something to present to the public, which is what you have right now. So number one, I do commend you on your communication to the public, for having this forum, for gaining feedback. I believe what you're looking for right now is just the dynamics of the pool. I think the finances and hiring, getting the right people there that we can actually trust is the foundation to it. The minutia and the plans is something yet to be determined as you go along and as you explore. And you do budget for that 15% variance. And And the bidding, as we have learned and CJ pointed out, can go out to bid at, what was it, 65%? 60% of plans. So I do ask that the public keeps in mind that there has to be a certain level of planning and researching. To engage the public in the research stage is absurd. I mean, we all have different ideas of what we'd like to see and how much it's gonna cost. And if we say that this has only been a couple of months down the line, as we have learned with the municipal building project, some of this takes time before you actually have something to present. So number one, I understand it. I'd like to thank you. We would hope that the community puts the trust in you, that you are gonna find the right project for the right price, at the right time, not impact our taxes that we were asked for the municipal building. And at the end of the day, if it gets to that point of now's the time to pull the trigger and have that expense, that we do have a little bit more engagement and have a little bit more input. But so far, you have done a good job.
If there are any other questions, we're gonna go up to 9 o'clock, so again, we're gonna have a closing statement. So if there are any questions, we still wanna invite those questions. Yeah, more. Sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Kathy Schmidt. I enjoyed both parks here. Just a quick, I'm standing outside, so I'm only getting part of it. There is no options with other plans. Is this the only plan that we are allowed? Is that?
It's the only design we have.
So that was the only design you ever had? There was
Well, he
no other
kinda like
designs?
gave us not really, we talked about it, but once we described what we wanted, then John went out and kinda like did what we wanted.
Okay, so barring, I don't know, like I said, I don't know what was already said because I'm not there, but barring that, is there a way that we can have this staked out so that the public can go see the actual size? At some point, it's wide open there, nobody's visualizing the pool, and then we can see live, before the snow flies, what it really looks like? I mean, because this is shocking. When this went across Facebook, I don't know about you guys, but, I mean, and talk about not utilizing, I'm telling you, I'm in that pool playing catch with my son. We utilize just that, just me and him will be hitting people next year, I can tell you that right now,
So
because.
I'll remember to bring a helmet.
Do that, because, I mean, we utilize that whole area.
I think Bobby and his crew can
I mean, if
do
we
a
can post
rough
that,
layout. Well, it is
something-
closed down, I mean,
Well, of
there's no
course.
water there
And
anymore,
there's
it's
all
just
that
closed.
space, so if we can go as a public
We'll
and
ask them to
community
paint it
see,
out.
I would prefer more options, that's just me, to say, you know, this option's this much money, and this option's that much money, that's me, but if not, at least we can see firsthand what exactly it's gonna, possibly we have more of an envision, because this picture is.
So again, I just want to be clear, because Mr. De Jesus mentioned, understand more options, I just want to be clear, more options would be a bigger pool. Is that what that's what you're indicating, that this pool would be too small and you're looking for us to go?
Well, I think it's compared to what we're used to, I mean, I'm not good with change, so maybe don't go by me, but that is, you have said, come on, that's a tiny pool.
Well, again, we were, again, trying to keep in mind a number of things, but what I want to just understand is when we're doing options, we already know what zero would be, right? And then this is the option that we thought was within our budget, that it would minimize the impact at all the residents. So anything from that point on would increase the cost, which would impact taxes.
I can only speak for myself. I would pay more for a bigger pool.
Okay, so I just
But I'm
want-
not saying I'm gonna go pay $1,000 more, but we would like the options to
Sure,
say,
sure.
your taxes would be zero increase, your
So I
taxes
just want to
would
be clear that
But that's
from,
just me
yeah,
talking.
yeah, absolutely. So we just want to, I want to be clear. The option, because we can't ask the engineer to do multiple, we can, it's gonna cost money. So I just want to know that when we're doing a second rendition, are we looking larger?
Well, why don't you, that would be another thing for the community, would be our rules. Do you want zero taxes? No, then you're stuck with this plan.
Well,
Do you want, you know, are you willing to pay more taxes? Then here's
Well, that's what I'm
option
saying. What direction are we going? Are we going larger? And if larger, how large?
Well, I can't speak for the community, I'm just speaking for
Well,
myself.
I'm saying you're presenting it, so I'm asking your opinion on it.
Personally, I would say larger, especially the shallow end, that's where I think 95%
Larger.
of the people
So
go
when
to
you're
the
looking
shallow
at,
end.
when you're looking at the diagram, what percentage, like 20%
I
larger?
can't say, I'm
No?
just saying, I was just showing them outside. This shallow end was almost all utilized. And only that center section was utilized for diving boards. So what you took away truly from the town, not so much the diving boards, is that shallow end where so many of the kids play with their parents. I mean, and I'm one of them, where we're playing catch and stuff like that.
Why don't we, as Bobby said, that he will get the dimensions and he'll lay it out. And what we'll probably do is, one weekend, we'll try to open it up and the people come and take a look at it.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think it's
Right.
fair enough.
So-
I just, and, you know, like I said, I've never even set foot on the dive board in my life. So, and I've been here since 2001. It's the shallow end to me was the most shocking
I
spot.
understand. Bob wanted to say something.
Frank, you could also mark out on the existing pool, the dimensions of the new pool.
Well, that's what I was talking
So we
about.
can see how much of that old pool and how it compares to the new side.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Can we do that, like,
Yeah,
before the
that's
snow
what,
flies?
that's what we'll do.
Okay.
So I just have, we got a lot of input from the audience here, a lot of things to think about. And I have two questions for you folks. Question number one, do you mind slowing down the process? Do you want the process slowed down? Show of hands?
Yes, please.
Okay, can we have somebody, I want a head count on,
Well, let's just get a rough idea.
You're willing to, you want the process slowed down so you can put more input into it?
It's not really fair to do a head count when you have a meeting at 7 o'clock and some people weren't even home from work.
Well,
You
that's,
didn't say you were taking a vote
that's the
at
way we
a
gotta
public
do it
hearing.
now. Also, I'd love a show of hands. If it jeopardizes the next season, you know, are you willing to keep the pace slow? Would you be willing to jeopardize the next season?
I think the question, let me just rephrase the question. Are you okay with, is the community, and the only reason why we're saying by show of hands, because again, and I understand what you're saying, Denise. This is a very small sampling. But we want to visually understand who specifically wants to close the pool down so that we can slow it down. Because understand.
Nobody wants to close it down, Jack.
No,
It's
I
way up
understand.
there.
But
It's not-
understand this.
We want it done right, we want it done safe.
And that's exactly what we want to do. That's exactly what we want to do. But understand this. It appears that this is more than likely, and I think the board kind of sees this as well as the Parks Department. This is where we're at right now in our timeline. We're gonna talk about what's been presented here. And another option, to provide another option is gonna require, John, what time frame would that take to do a second drawing?
I can build exactly. I can come up with a million variations without exaggeration.
So what if you wanted each part the same and then just compare them? Because I think that's what.
Can I ask just for clarification on something?
Go ahead.
If something causes a delay to what you're working on right now, for the July 1st opening, what's the plan? I mean, you have all these staff you need to hire. Are you gonna be hiring people and they'll be kind of waiting for?
No, we will not, if we're not opening the pool,
The staff is
there
not
will
hired.
not be a staff.
Right, so what
And
happens
then-
if you're done in August, then there's no staff, then it's not opening anyway, right?
Right,
Well-
so that's the point. The point is this, and in all reality, let's just be honest. Where we're at right now with this discussion, we have a very small window, right? So if the general consensus, and I think this is where Mr. Hunter was going at, if the general consensus is, slow it down, let's look at other options, the board can do that. We just want to understand how many of the community right here is in support of closing the pool, because essentially, I get it, but
It has to be done safely and
Absolutely, but understand, we can't have it both ways, right?
Let's be realistic.
I just-
Is it gonna be open July 1st? Realistically, let's be real. It's not gonna be ready, regardless if we rush now or rush. It's not gonna be ready. Slow down and let's do it correctly so we don't have this problem in the future.
So I just wanna be
That's our
clear.
most concern.
I'd like
A
to
repeat
just,
of what's occurring now in the future.
I-
Let's slow down and do it correctly and have options for the public to view.
but what Jackie is asking, and I think the consensus is, we can slow down.
We
can
need
do-
to slow
we-
down,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, and then you're not gonna have a pool next.
It's not gonna be ready regardless. We do
That's
have the
not
plan
true.
starting tomorrow. Let's be realistic.
Okay, so the conversation, again, just by a show of hands, and I'm just reiterating, Councilman Hunter, I'm just reiterating, he wants a question, I just wanna get clarity on his, and again, it's not to put anyone out there to make it seem like you're against the pool. Let me be clear. I just wanna be clear that from this point forward, the decision to, provide a second drawing will determine that the pool is closed. And if that's what the community wants, we just wanna hear the community, and then we'll move forward with that, because we understand that the community feels that that's very important. But we can't have it both ways, so I just wanna be clear, by a show of hands,
You didn't advertise
It
that
is-
you were
It's
taking a
not
vote.
gonna be ready regardless,
It's
guys.
really
Let's
not
be
fair.
realistic. It's
Ma'am,
not gonna be ready.
ma'am, please. Mr. Perino, you, oh,
Who's here first, Mr. Supervisor?
okay, thank you.
Good evening. Hello, Frank and Joe and everybody else does a great job trying to do the best for our town, and I firmly believe that. I can't say I agree with everything the way it's going, but I do firmly believe that everyone in our town does the best for what they believe is the best for our town. The few concerns I have, one is the same engineering company who oversaw the last pool renovation gonna be the same one overseeing this one?
No.
Okay, well, that's a positive.
Thank God.
Okay. The other thing, has anyone looked into, I mean, I very, very, very seldom even use the pool, but I think it's beautiful, I think it's a beautiful part of the town, and I like just the way it is, quite frankly, but at least, so I understand that. Has anyone considered putting shotcrete? Right now, the pool is exactly what it is. There's gonna be a lot of demolition, there's gonna be a lot of disturbance, but we already have a solid base. It's been there for years, with how many tons of water pressure pressuring down upon this, okay? I do realize that you have water movement underneath. Now, is that just groundwater, surface water, or is that an actual moving body of water? That makes a big difference, okay? Now, if you use what you had as a base, you could keep, and I've contacted several pool people, and I brought a concrete specialist with me, okay? You could have the exact same pool you have right now, which when the pool is finished, it would be finished in half the time, number one, okay? And the otherwise, it would be much better also, because you could do it, this is all steel reinforced shotcrete, okay? Which will last much longer than the gunite, much, much longer, okay? And when you have ground instability, as the engineer said, you can divert that if it is moving water under the ground, can be diverted around the pool. That can still be done outside the perimeter of the existing pool without all that demolition. And when you're finished, it took half the time, and you got the same exact pool that you have right now for probably much, much less money. All you need to do is talk to a good pool shotcrete company, and this is where I got the information from. Thank you. So thank you, so that's just an option I think really should be looked into.
Mr. Perino.
Thank you.
Commissioner Perino, it's not a point in not wanting to happen. Everybody here wants to happen. The time frame, I've been building, I was born into it. I was an engineer. You're asking for everything to be in line properly to make this deadline. We all know that that's not going to happen. As good as you are, and I believe that you are good, I don't know who else you might have vetted for this job as well. This is another question I had earlier, other than this job.
Well, he's been highly recommended by
I
several
understand
people.
that. I understand that, I don't have a problem with that, it sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but there's a lot of other options that can be considered for this project as well. And I think that's what the problem is with a lot of residents and taxpayers. They've been through the ringer for millions of dollars before in the past, and it doesn't handle it correctly. I commend the fact that we want to handle it correctly, but this is where all these questions are coming from. I don't believe that this will be made at the deadline, even if you made the decision tonight. You're gonna have a hard winter, there's water issues there's a lot of unforeseen issues. And being in the building for a few years, you know that. There's always something there that you can't anticipate, which is going to cause a stall. So if that's going to happen, we're gonna have to just deal without a pool for 3 months, 6 months, or even a season. We should take that into consideration now and then build it properly so you never have to answer these questions again.
You're right, there is a lot of potential delay. There are also a lot of things that we can do to minimize those delays. We've had projects, full work has not stopped year round.
No, I understand.
They go out, they'll thaw the ground out, they'll hit the ground, whatever they need to do, they'll keep working. So basically, we're not trying to force this to go in there.
It sounds like you are.
We're trying to force through the possibility. I honestly, personally, it doesn't matter to me if this happens next spring, the spring after, or 3 years from now. It doesn't matter.
No, I understand.
What we're trying to is not give up the possibility for you until we have to.
No, I understand that possibility, but I learned from old Italians how to play with concrete and stone many years ago. And everything looks great on paper. When it comes time to doing the building, there's so many unforeseen things. I understand your point of view. You can push through the winter and do this. They build roads, skyscrapers, everything through the winter. It can be done. But I'm telling you from a point of view, you're pushing it. You're pushing it. By pushing something, you have problems. TZ Bridge was paved over for years. Everything came up a year later. Palisades Mall was built. They got cracks everywhere and stretch fractures. There's so many things that can be thrown at it. You have engineers standing in this room right now. Okay? I understand where you're coming from. I understand the pressure that's upon the board. But you have to look long term in order to correct these problems so you never have to come back to it again. And the planning of it, as much as it's not part of the pool issue right now, the planning of it, yeah, they're right. It costs money to make these plans. It costs money to get second designs. But this was something that should have been spoken about 6 months ago. This pool's been a problem for 6 years. Okay? 6 months ago, this should have hit the table.
Just for some clarification, it was being researched 6 months ago, and this board only has been in office since 2018. So just understand that if there were issues prior to that, we are limited to the time that we've been in the board.
Nobody's blaming anybody.
No, I just
saying-
wanted clarification.
I understand, you can have all the clarification you want. This has been an elephant in the room for many years. We're not blaming anybody on the board. You were sitting on this side of the table that maybe back then, but the problem has always been here. Let's get it straight and let's get it right this time so we never have to explore this again.
And that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm Mike's friend, and I'm a concrete contractor in New Jersey, but I live right down there. It's funny, because my in-laws had an asphalt pool. Now, I don't know what you do in your maintenance on this, you just probably scrape it and paint it every year. But there's a Sika product out there, you could probably just put right on there, and that thing guaranteed would probably hold water. That's number one. Number two, I've ripped out probably 100 gunite pools. Gunite, they say, is 6,000 PSI, and it's mixed at the nozzle with sand and cement. It's not 6,000 PSI. Shotcrete is made in a concrete plant and brought in a concrete truck and pushed through a concrete pump with air on it. So it's a better mix, it's a consistent mix. And for your designing here, you make a plan up and you're gonna present it to contractors, that plan should be 100% complete. The taxpayer shouldn't bear the burden of an architect or an engineer making a mistake where the guy gotta get an extra. That's what they do on all this highway work and a lot of these public bids. That's where these guys make all their money. They should pay attention to that. They should hold the architect and the engineer responsible for any overruns because they made a mistake. And a concrete pool over there, you're gonna have to keep water in it year round. Because if you don't have water in it, and you put the plug in the bottom, and you know that it pop out of the ground. I probably ripped out 60 of them that popped out of the ground. And you wouldn't think it because it's concrete, but they pop right out of the ground. And if you have a lot of spring water over there, someone's gotta be very responsible to make sure that plug's out of the bottom and keep water in that pool. Don't have to be to the top, but it's gotta be a lot of water in that pool, a lot. You know, I would examine your option with the seat. You only scrape and paint that asphalt pool. I think if you sandblasted that thing, and if you wanna keep the pool like it is, go to Sika or Ken Seal and go right over it. And then you probably get another 10 years out of it. They warranty the product for 20 years.
We do what the engineers told us to do.
Well, what did they tell you to do?
We never varied from that because we didn't want to be the ones that didn't work.
Well, maybe you have the wrong engineer. Maybe you have the wrong engineer.
Well, that's exactly why we got this engineer.
I would recall, we've had an asphalt pool, and it was just a very small pool, you know, like 6, very small, but it had the size that went up like that. But my father-in-law used to seal it with tar, which was kind of antiquated, then painted it, which you don't want to do, but it held water all the time. But Sika, Ken Seal, I just sealed a big roof deck, and it's watertight. I bet you could seal that thing and at least get 5 years out of it.
Well, what we're having problems about now is asphalt gets very brittle. Now we're getting cracks from shrinkage. It's shrinking, it's away from the wall, it's shrinking away from all the areas that it touches concrete.
Right.
So we've done everything we could possibly for the last 2 years.
Right.
Because, I'm sorry. So it's.
But you said the pool was good from 1960s to.
No. It was a flow-through bathing beach, so constantly had 90 gallons of water going into it. Constantly.
It just seems like to me that, and I do a tremendous amount of concrete work in North Jersey, and that 3.5 million is a very, very high number. Oof. I mean, real high.
But we're doing public work, and public
Well,
work.
still.
Well, no, it's
still.
not, still.
Why just
It's-
hire a pool company to do it?
Can't.
Straight pool company, like
Can't.
Sylvan Pools.
Can't.
Yeah.
It's gotta be public, it's gotta be, the wages have gotta be, you're saying, yeah, I would love to do it, but, we found out what happened when you don't use, the proper scale.
Well, you could just make the whole pool company, they have certified payroll and hold them to doing prevailing wage. That's what it
Has
is.
to be
You don't have to be union over there. Yeah, you can be prevailing wage.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's what kills you. It kills you.
It just
It's-
seems 3.5 million is very, very.
Well, it may not be three. Listen, we took out 3.5 on the basis that we were considering that it would be around 3 million. Okay, that's really what we're guessing it to be at.
Yeah.
And we took the extra 500,000. If we don't spend it, we don't pay for it. We give it back. But what we didn't want to happen, what someone had brought up, was that you find out that it's overrunning or it's a little bit more, and then you
I
got to
would
do
go
a
to
bond
a
issue
pool
again.
company, and say to them, look, Sylvan Pools, are you capable of doing a prevailing wage job? If they say yes, they have to certify the payroll, not you guys. So,
We're going through pool companies.
Yeah.
One of the guys that will be bidding on the project builds all the pools over in Cleveland.
Yeah.
For Westchester County Parks.
Yeah.
Massive pools.
Yeah.
These are guys familiar with the scale and scope of work.
Yeah, I would just make sure that you don't have to drive, you mentioned piles over there. If you gotta drive piles over there for the whole, support this pool, course overrun,
I would
forget
think
about
that
it.
there's possibilities on how to create a steeple.
A lot of gravel under there, it's not a lot of pools.
All right, well, thank
It's
you.
costly.
Thank you. Anybody else? Because if not, we're going to close this public hearing.
Hi, my name is Karen Kovalenko. I've been here for almost 10 years. I think my biggest concern is that there's gonna be a repeat of what has happened in the past. So my suggestion, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, is that we need to slow down and get it done correctly, so we don't see this in another 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, whatever. All we're asking is to slow down and research more, give us option, include us, the public. Include us. I don't understand why we weren't included to begin with.
Okay. Thank you.
So, is there gonna be like, is this a vote? Are we voting today?
No,
Like,
there's
what's
no
going on?
voting, we're listening.
Strictly an
We're listening.
Oh, it's just
informational meeting.
listening, so,
Just an informational meeting, ma'am.
Yeah, we're taking information so that the board can discuss what the concerns are, what suggestions have been given, so that we can move forward with that. So it is important, that's why we're asking, we're taking notes.
So without any further things, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you for all of your comments. We will take them all into consideration
So
and
what-
have a great evening.
Wait, sir, so what's the verdict? Are you gonna tell us what's gonna go on? What's the next step? Or what's gonna happen?
We're gonna just keep the process going along, ma'am.
So
you're
this was
wasting
for
your
nothing,
time.
it was a waste of time.
We have to talk.
We will, guys, remember this, voting is coming up. Remember
Ma'am,
this.
ma'am, please.
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
Thank you.
We are listening,
Have a good
so we
evening,
can go
everybody.
and talk as a board, so we can address the
You just said
concerns.
no voting.
There's no voting.
Say that again?
We're